The forces of nature can be catastrophic, as volcanoes, bushfires, or tsunamis strike without warning, killing anyone in their way. But unlike humans, animals seem to anticipate natural disasters. Do they have special senses that could alert us before tragedy strikes?
The larger quakes are preceded by longer advance warning from the cats and dogs.
Scientists investigate the animal kingdom's special senses. Developed over millions of years to protect themselves against natural disasters.
The coral contains cloud-seeding substances. Well, clouds moderate the temperature of the sea.
Millions of people are threatened by natural disasters. Could an animal early warning system protect human lives?
So Stunden vor einem Ausbruch wissen die Ziegen offensichtlich schon, was passiert und teilen uns das über ihr Verhalten mit.
Whether they're domestic or wild, animals seem to have a special sense for danger. California. On the west coast of the United States are the Los Angeles Ranges. They are the foothills of the coastal mountains flanking the Los Angeles metropolis. The German scientist Martin Bikelski and his colleague Rolf Weinziel are searching for a rare species. The Californian condor is one of the largest birds on Earth.
Der Kondorflug ist toll, weil die praktisch die gesamte Zeit im Aufwind gleiten. Das heißt, die müssen fast nie mit den Flügeln schlagen. Und damit ist es für uns einfacher zu verstehen, was die machen. Die Kondore wissen genau, wo ist Thermik, wo sind Aufwinde. Und das können wir über die Kondore dann messen.
Birds as flying weather stations, monitoring the local wind conditions. Condors are gliders that use updrafts invisible to the human eye. Perhaps they could provide early clues about changes in the weather. Equipped with GPS transmitters, the hope is that these animals will one day be able to alert us before a major storm hits a nearby city. By learning to analyze the condor's flight, improved weather forecasts could be made. They could warn the entire metropolitan region and its population of millions when severe storms are about to strike. But for the scientists, this is only the beginning.
Die Kondore sind nur eine Tierart, die uns über Naturphänomene Auskunft geben können, eben zum Beispiel Windbewegungen für Wettervorhersagen. Aber wir wollen jetzt natürlich herausfinden, ob es andere Tiere gibt, auch in dieser Landschaft, die uns Naturkatastrophen wie Erdbeben voraussagen können, eben hier zwischen San Francisco und Los Angeles, wo es in Zukunft zu größeren Erdbeben kommen wird wieder.
Even in our modern age, there are forces in the natural world that we cannot control. California is blessed with sunshine. It's a paradise for some. But it's also a geological crisis zone. It is literally on the brink of disaster. In the middle of the prairie, two vast continental plates collide. The San Andreas Fault marks the boundary between the American and the Pacific plates. Any movements in the Earth's crust release extremely powerful forces. The danger zone stretches across California. It threatens LA and San Francisco. a small, rocky island off the coast of Northern California. Here, at Muscle Rock, the San Andreas Fault meets the wild Pacific Ocean. This was the epicenter of one of the most devastating earthquakes in history. San Francisco, 1906. Only a few miles down the coast, the Golden Gate Bridge. It's an example of how modern technology challenges nature, right in the middle of an earthquake zone. The area is home to 800,000 people. As well as hundreds of thousands of pets. Cats and dogs are people's closest companions. But how do these animals perceive their environment? Can humanity's best friends warn us of imminent natural disasters? San Francisco has repeatedly been hit by earthquakes. The first major quake in 1906 struck without warning. Geologist Jim Birkeland has spent much of his life studying the event.
In San Francisco, the 1906 earthquake, the fault moved up to 21 feet in Marin County, just to the north of the epicenter, all the way up to the intersection with the Mendocino Trench. And it was like 270 miles where it moved up to 21 feet. You often saw the old fence lines offset by 4 or 5 feet.
The city was badly hit. Prior to the quake, residents reported unusual behavior by domestic animals.
You couldn't saddle the horses. And the cows, they couldn't milk them that morning because they were too edgy. They were just jumping up all around, and then the quake hit.
It was one of the worst disasters in US history. Buildings collapsed. Fires raged for days. 3,000 people died. Hundreds of thousands became homeless. The city center was largely destroyed. Nearby, in the Carrizo Plains, these rock formations serve as a reminder of the catastrophe and of subsequent disasters. Like the earthquake that struck San Francisco on the 17th of October, 1989. Even modern buildings couldn't withstand the forces of nature. 4 days before the event, Jim Birkeland had published a warning that an earthquake was imminent based on his research into animal behavior.
So I began to collect clippings from the Lost and Found column, and I have 20 years of daily Lost and Found clippings. And it was a very valuable adjunct to my regular predictions.
Birkeland's idea was simple. When domestic animals sense that an earthquake is imminent, they become restless or run away. Their owners then place a missing pet ad in the local paper. Prior to a quake, the number of missing pet ads increases dramatically. Birkeland collated statistics about missing pets, the basis of his now famous earthquake warning in 1989.
It seems, what I've found, the larger quakes are preceded by longer advance warning from the cats and dogs.
His observations failed to get scientific recognition. An early warning system for quakes based on pets was one step too far for our technology-minded world.
When you talk about animals and quakes, and you talk to scientists, you have to be very careful, because if you value your reputation.
Since then, the scientific community has started to take notice. Birkeland's work is at last being taken seriously.
Jim Birkelands Arbeit war wirklich Pionierarbeit. Er hat zum ersten Mal systematisch sich angeschaut, was machen Katzen und Hunde vor dem Erdbeben, und hat wirklich herausgefunden, da könnte was sein. Jetzt können wir eben mit den modernen Methoden endlich nach Jahrzehnten von Jims Arbeit im Vorfeld von einem Erdbeben schauen, was machen die Tiere wirklich.
Priority is given to animals with special abilities. Martin Wikelski's research takes him to the rainforests of Sumatra in Indonesia. It's the home of the Asian elephant, said to have a sixth sense for danger. There are reports that elephants display unusual behavior prior to natural disasters. And it's rare that an elephant is injured in a quake, even if it lives in a zone that's prone to earthquakes. Wikelski knows well that an elephant's senses are superior to our own. Like an inbuilt early warning system, it may have the potential to save human lives as well. Dawn descends on the northern tip of Sumatra. A beauty spot flanked by the Indian Ocean. Yet in December 2004, this coast was devastated. A seaquake and a massive tsunami claimed hundreds of thousands of lives along the coastlines of Southeast Asia. Martin Wikelski travels to Banda Aceh. He wants to find out if the unique senses of elephants could be of benefit to humans. Early in the morning, he is looking for traces of the tsunami.
Wir sind hier etwa 1,5 Kilometer vom Meer weg. Er ist gleich da hinten. Und obwohl das so weit ist, hat das Meer, die Flutwelle, noch eine unglaubliche Kraft gehabt. Sie ist hier ungefähr in der Höhe angekommen. Das war also eine schleimige, schlammige Masse und ist dann hochgestiegen bis zum ersten Stock ungefähr. Und ja, hat alles mitgerissen und noch eine unglaubliche Macht gehabt hier.
In the city centre, the market is back, just as it was 12 years ago. No trace of the disaster. Or so it seems. In reality, the catastrophe is ever present. 30,000 people died here when the tsunami struck. Today, the streets are packed with shoppers, just like in 2004. Everyone has a story to tell. Martin Wikelski listens carefully. He wants to meet the people he hopes to help. Many lost everything during the disaster. Almost everyone mourns the loss of a relative.
Viele kommen natürlich täglich auf den Markt. Jetzt wäre der Tsunami gekommen um die Zeit und da rollt dann einfach so eine 3 Meter hohe Welle oder 4 Meter hohe Welle hier durch. Das ist vollkommen unverständlich, wie sowas war. Also es ist absoluter Wahnsinn.
But life goes on, despite the ever-present danger. Martin Wikelski and fellow scientists from Aceh University embark on a tough journey to the jungle. It's a dangerous trip through difficult terrain. The easiest way to travel is on the back of a tame elephant. But it's the wild elephants of Sumatra they are looking for. These majestic animals sometimes get into conflict with farmers. Local rangers guide the German scientists to a jungle station. There are reports of wild elephants in the area. At night, in the camp, Bikelski and his team discuss the next day.
Wir sind hier in Pantong Lag, in der Mitte von Aceh im Norden von Indonesien. Wir gehen jetzt raus, versuchen die wilden Elefanten zu finden und betäuben dann einen von denen und hängen dann ein Halsband drum, um den jederzeit zu beobachten. Wir wollen sehen, könnte dieser Elefant ein Frühwarnsystem für uns sein, für das nächste Erdbeben, das hier innerhalb der nächsten 2-3 Jahre wieder auftritt. Und damit können wir den 6. Sinn der Tiere für uns ausnutzen, um wirklich zu sehen, können die solche Vorhersagen machen.
A GPS collar can provide round-the-clock data on an elephant's exact position and movements. This would allow Bikelski to analyze the animal's behavior. But first, catch your elephant. Sumatra is home to approximately 3,000 wild elephants. They are a subspecies of the Asian elephant, just a bit smaller in stature. In the dense rainforest, they lead an intense family life. Great care is taken of their young. Elephants are busy communicators, not least in order to keep a distance from other herds. Snorts and trumpet sounds are only one part of their vocalization arsenal. Their main communication sounds are low-frequency rumbles, inaudible to human ears. They also feel vibrations in the ground, an alternative way of hearing. This combination allows them to sense tremors like those caused by an earthquake over great distances. 93 miles off the coast of Indonesia is the Sunda Trench. 10,000 feet below sea level is a world full of danger. Tectonic plates collide here. These stacked clods are remnants of past catastrophes. Traces of major events remain visible for millennia. Earthquakes create seismic shock waves that spread at great speed. The vibrations travel along the ground. Small foreshocks are barely noticeable by humans, but elephants will notice even the smallest tremor. It allows them to head for safe ground before the main earthquake strikes. Martin Bikelski wants to find out if the elephant's special senses can help humans predict an earthquake. He still has to catch one first. After hours of tracking, the team find their first traces. These tiny butterflies love the mineral-bearing dung of elephants. Elephant footprints are nearby. In the morning, the trackers continue their search. Martin is trying to keep up. A male elephant is spotted in the thick forest. The team's vet gives instructions. This male is huge and alone. He could be dangerous. The men are nervous. The first shot hits the target, but the tranquilizer isn't strong enough to sedate this huge male. They have to act quickly. The vet reloads.
Er macht jetzt gerade sein Blasrohr fertig, damit falls der Elefant jetzt rauskommt, noch einen Schuss setzen kann. Das sind wilde Tiere, man weiß nie, was da passiert. Das ist jetzt alles so ein bisschen gefährlich im Moment.
The situation is not yet under control. It's a giant, more than 10 feet tall. Wikelski's team approach the elephant with caution. Another tranquilizer shot sedates the elephant completely. This huge male sleeps standing up. But he needs to be secured. If he falls over, this giant could get squashed under his own weight. He's sandwiched between two tame elephants. Every minute counts. The sedative wears off quickly. The men attach the GPS transmitter to the elephant's neck. And just in time, the large male is beginning to wake up. The team linger before they withdraw from the scene. Soon, this jungle giant will be roaming the forest again.
Das Revolutionäre ist, dass wir zum ersten Mal wirklich 24 Stunden durchgehend das Verhalten von diesem Tier beobachten können. Es gibt ja von Deutschland aus das Tsunami-Frühwarnsystem über Satellit, wo man Bojen draußen hat, die uns die Daten schicken. Und unsere lebenden, intelligenten Bojen sind jetzt die Elefanten. Das heißt, wir können über die Elefanten jederzeit beobachten, was in der Natur hier vor sich geht und die Leute entsprechend warnen, wenn irgendwas ansteht.
Later that day, one more elephant is sedated and equipped with a transmitter. But Wikelski doesn't yet know if the data transmission works properly. A few weeks later, 6,000 miles away, in the German town of Radolfzell, near Lake Constance, the system is up and running. Martin can analyze the first data. The GPS transmitters in Aceh constantly send information on the elephant's movements. Video footage of the animals helps in the analysis of their behavior. So, what does the data reveal?
Die Geräte auf den Elefanten zeigen uns wirklich genau an, in 3 Raumachsen, was macht der Elefant. Und es hat besser funktioniert, als wir je gedacht haben. Wenn man hier sieht, zum Beispiel der Elefant frisst, er nimmt mit dem Rüssel die Nahrung auf und man sieht hier jede Nahrungsaufnahme mit dem Rüssel. Also hier bewegt sich immer der Rüssel hoch und runter. Hier im nächsten Bild sieht man, er muss stapfen, ganz durch einen tiefen Schlamm stapfen. Und man sieht, wie schwierig das ist und wie tief der hier einstapft und auch wie langsam er geht. Und wir sehen auch, ob die anderen Elefanten aktiv werden. Und dann können wir sagen, oh, da passiert jetzt was, was in den gesamten anderen bisherigen Bewegungsmustern nicht vorhanden war. Da ist irgendwas ganz Komisches am Laufen bei den Elefanten. Und dann könnten wir sagen, naja, wenn das wirklich zutrifft, können wir da Vorwarnungen geben.
On the other side of the planet, in Western Australia, it's bushfires that pose a major threat to humans. A new day dawns north of Perth. The metropolitan region and its population of 2 million people have to live with the constant fear of fire. The annual firefighting costs are immense. Every year, bushfires destroy valuable farmland. They also threaten human settlements. To locate the smoldering fire sources, regular reconnaissance flights are required. Still, the fire services often discover bushfires when it's already too late. This fire was extinguished weeks ago. The trees are based in a dried-out swamp. The peat in the ground is highly flammable, which is why the fire continues to smolder. The roots of the trees continue to burn in the hot ground. 2 German scientists fight their way through the ashes. The terrain only appears to be dead. Even here, there is life. Biologists Helmut and Anke Schmitz are experts in scorched landscapes. They are looking for animals that live with fire.
Also man muss sich da immer vor Augen führen, dass ja Feuer natürlich vorkommende Katastrophen sind. Gerade hier in Australien sind ja sehr viele Pflanzen an solche Feuer angepasst, sehr gut angepasst. Zum Teil brauchen die das Feuer auch. Und in der Tat ist es auch so, dass eine Reihe von Tieren sich auch an solche Feuer angepasst haben.
One of them is the jewel beetle. Usually they're extremely colorful. Yet this one, known as the fire beetle, is black, like the bark of a burnt tree. It's adapted to this specific environment.
Der große australische Feuerkäfer kann herausfinden, wo es brennt. Und wenn er dann auf einer solchen frischen Brandfläche hier ankommt, wo es überall noch raucht und qualmt, dann ist natürlich eins klar, es ist normalerweise keiner da. Insbesondere keine Fressfeinde, beispielsweise Vögel. Und deshalb können die Käfer hier ganz ungestört ihr Fortpflanzungsgeschäft sozusagen beginnen. Und die Männchen suchen ganz engagiert nach Weibchen und beide Geschlechter suchen aber auch nach Fressbarem. Das heißt, es ist ein Eldorado, es gibt Gegrilltes. Aber es gibt eben auch dann Geschlechtspartner und die Weibchen können dann sofort die Eier ablegen und damit ist das gelaufen.
In the future, fire beetles may be able to help us trace dangerous fires before they get out of control. Time-lapse images show what goes on at night. Because the ground of this peaty swamp is still hot, the wind will continue to rekindle the smoldering areas. It's a recurring danger and almost impossible to control. Dry thunderstorms further increase the risk of fire. In Western Australia, more than 1,000 bushfires were recorded in 2015. Fire crews are on standby around the clock, but most of the time they will arrive too late. Driven by the wind, fire can spread at a speed of 30 miles per hour. The nearby coastal areas are under threat. Time and again, people lose their possessions to the flames. Firefighting choppers arrive every minute. To combat the forces of nature, the Australian government employs an entire army. Hundreds of millions of dollars are spent on the flames. But the struggle against bushfires can only prevent the worst. Because of the smoke, the fire sources are often difficult to spot. So the helicopters are equipped with infrared cameras. They home in on the hotspots. Just like the fire beetle. Its distinctive eyesight is combined with unique infrared sensors in its abdomen. These enable it to locate bushfires in a 30-mile radius. From above, the fire beetle can locate hotspots in the landscape. It heads straight for the target. It needs to conduct a perfect landing. The landing spot mustn't be hotter than 50 degrees Celsius. That's crucial for its survival. Even a fire beetle can get burnt. Here, it can be certain to encounter other beetles. Mating partners, who are ready for the fire dance straight away. The trees are still alive. Only the bark is scorched and the resin has evaporated. It makes it easier for the female to lay her eggs. Later, the beetle's larvae will feed off the wood from the tree. The German scientists discover many other animals at the scene of the fire. This giant huntsman spider managed to hide from the flames in a hollow trunk. Others were less lucky. Most of them will not survive. In contrast to the tiny fire beetle, which seeks out the heat. Its unique abilities could become the inspiration for cutting-edge technology.
Man könnte das auch ähnlich machen, dass man zum Beispiel ein Beetle-Copter baut, eine kleine vollautomatische Drohne, die in der Lage ist, 200-300 Meter aufzusteigen, sich einfach sozusagen um die eigene Achse zu drehen und zu scannen, wo ist eine Rauchwolke oder potenzielle Wolkenbank und ist da an der Basis, genau an der Grenze, Infrarot und könnte sofort an diese Stelle entsprechend zum Beispiel Löschhubschrauber oder Feuerwehreinheiten schicken.
The Beetle-Copter would be based on a beetle's sixth sense. It's an invention that might save millions of dollars. Once it's fully developed, it might also greatly enhance the safety of the firefighters. (2,200 miles to the east, on the other side of the Australian continent, it's water, not fire, that is of concern to humans. In particular, the dangers lurking below the surface. It's February 2015, and Cyclone Marcia is building up over the Pacific. It's a storm of the highest category, heading for the coast of Queensland. For now, life still continues as normal. The locals do what they love to do most. They go surfing. Some are unaware of the dangers below. Sharks roam these shores. Nets secure many beaches, but that doesn't always protect them. Bull sharks are a threat to surfers, but they may also be able to predict storms, because shark attacks on humans appear to be connected to bad weather. Every year, there are up to 3 fatal shark attacks in Australia. Jabaz Reitman has survived one. It happened the last time he went surfing.
Just do what I do every Sunday morning and get up early and I go for a surf.
But something was different that day. A large number of seagulls were circling the waves.
When we got out the back, a massive pod of dolphins came past us. Probably 20 or 30 dolphins. They were jumping everywhere. I said to my friend, don't freak out. They're not sharks.
That was a big mistake. The dolphins were hunting, and whenever dolphins are on the hunt, sharks are often not far behind.
It just came up and grabbed me and dragged me under the water. And I was really lucky that they let me go, and I realised it wasn't a dolphin when I came to the surface and could feel my back stinging. And I knew that from there it was a shark attack. I turned my head and saw the blood in the water, and that's when I realised I had to get out of the water right there and then.
The wounds suggest that Jabaz was attacked by a bull shark. He was fortunate. 2 days later, another surfer was attacked and killed. Shark researcher Jonathan Werry patrols the coast. He analyzes shark attacks.
It's quite typical of a shark that's come from underneath, launched, come down with its top jaw, grabbed in, its body weight's pulled back, and you can see where those teeth have torn into that, into that man's back. And that gentleman was there at the wrong time in the wrong place.
But why? Was the attack connected to the weather? The scientist has found astonishing answers. Beaches that are close to the mouth of a river are particularly affected. Behind the coastline of the Gold Coast is a vast network of canals and river arms. Like most sharks, bull sharks predominantly inhabit the sea. They migrate vast distances. They are also among the few saltwater species that swim into rivers to give birth to their young. They do so when heavy rainfall is imminent, something they can sense over a great distance. they can sense an upcoming change in the weather pattern from below the surface. Guided by their acute senses, bull sharks search for fresh water. This enters the ocean through rivers and guides the sharks to the coast. From above, the fresh water of a river is clearly visible to us. For sharks, this is more difficult. Minute differences in the water's salt density guide them to their target zone. Behind the coastline is the river delta with its many branches, often close to human settlements. Jonathan Werry is looking for young bull sharks. He suspects they are further upstream.
The big, female bull sharks do come up here, they drop their pups and they leave.
Because the juvenile sharks don't leave the river for several years, it doesn't take long before Jonathan catches one. The cloudy water protects them from other predators. It also provides plenty of food.
We've got a juvenile bull shark here. He's utilising a riverine habitat, so this area is a nursery ground for him.
After Jonathan has checked the shark, he releases it back into the river.
This guy is one of the key apex predators that literally lives with us. Yeah.
Jonathan Werry has been studying shark behavior for many years. Bull sharks have a sixth sense for changes in the weather and for approaching storms.
Bull sharks ultimately are susceptible to shifts in climate. So as we impact rainfall patterns through our increased carbon emissions and so forth, that's going to have an impact on bull sharks directly at a huge scale. So we looked at 50 years of catch data between the Gold Coast and Cairns. Lo and behold, the animals moved in response to rainfall just like our model had predicted.
As Cyclone Marcia makes landfall, the sharks are heading towards the river mouth. For surfers, this spells danger. Individual sharks have already entered the delta. Jonathan and his team want to provide proof for their predictions by catching a shark. They put out bait near a settlement. It doesn't take long.
There's a shark.
It's a strong and agile shark. It pushes Jonathan to the limit. The scientist wants to examine the shark before releasing it back into the river. The catch supports Jonathan's hypothesis that shark migration is connected to the weather.
See how he's bitten in.
So these animals can move a good distance very quickly. But the fact that we've got a couple around here with only a few baits in the water is telling me that this is now a temporal hotspot. And that's because we have this flushing rainfall coming down and we've got a big cyclone on its way.
The rainfall intensifies. It's an indication that a major storm is on its way. Jonathan Werry's observations have made predictions about shark migration possible, with the potential to save surfers' lives. When the shark's special senses guide them towards rivers, surfers better stay on land. Sometimes it's the more ordinary animals that can be of help to humans. This is the small town of Randazzo in Sicily. It's at the foot of Etna, Europe's biggest and most active volcano. Early in the morning, the shepherds take their goats out to pasture. The animals are descendants of an old Sicilian breed. They find their own way to the lush meadows of the mountain. It may look serene, but it's like living on a powder keg. These goats are more intuitive to the situation than humans. They have developed a specific sense for the volcano's activities. It's no coincidence that scientist Martin Wikelski includes the Sicilian goats in his investigation to predict a volcanic eruption long in advance.
Ja, wir können natürlich versuchen, das, was wir von Tieren wissen, in Technik einzubauen. Aber auf der anderen Seite ist es möglicherweise sehr viel besser und effizienter, wenn die Tiere selber unsere Sensoren sind. Sie sind angepasst an das, was sie draußen finden. Und damit haben wir eigentlich ein perfektes System.
But how can we find out what a goat may know? Like the elephants in Sumatra, these goats wear GPS transmitters. Their movements provide clues. Where are they heading? Are they in a hurry or are they feeding? Are they nervous because a volcanic eruption is imminent? Animal behavior is determined by the environment. Scientists have to learn to interpret their actions.
Wir wissen inzwischen, dass die Ziegen offensichtlich Informationen darüber haben, was der Ätna macht, und zwar im Vorfeld. Also Stunden vor einem Ausbruch wissen die Ziegen offensichtlich schon, was passiert und teilen uns das über ihr Verhalten mit.
Such clues may help to save lives. Etna has been constantly active for over 2,500 years. This year alone, 2 eruptions were recorded. Typical of the region are these small crater openings. Gases are released even at times of low volcanic activity. The lava is thin. It's ejected in huge fountains. At times of increased activity, there are regular explosive eruptions. The volcano's smoke and steam aren't limited to the mountain peak. There are hundreds of ground openings across the region. Any escaping gas will spread across a wide range. It may alert the goats long before the volcano erupts. These GPS recordings show the migration of the goats early in 2013. On the 16th of March, early in the morning, they suddenly change direction and head straight for an area they usually ignore. They hardly feed, as Wikelski's data shows. They withdraw to an area with tall shrubs that hasn't been affected by volcanic eruptions in 100 years. Indeed, that afternoon, Etna erupts, one of the most powerful eruptions in years.
Die große Frage ist natürlich, was wissen die genau? Oder was können sie spüren, bevor der Vulkan ausbricht? Und wir denken, dass es eine Kombination aus Sensorik ist. Also dass die verschiedene Sachen spüren, zum Beispiel einen neuen Geruch. Es bewegt sich in der Erde ein bisschen was. Andere Tiere sind aktiv. Aber offensichtlich sind die Ziegen so auf ihre Umwelt fixiert und beobachten ganz genau, dass sie einfach mitkriegen, da passiert irgendwas Neues, Unerwartetes.
These highly sensitive animals provide powerful clues. They have special knowledge of the volcano that constitutes their habitat. But some animals have even greater powers than these. They have the ability to transform the world around them. These cloud formations have been produced by animals. Animals that protect themselves and their entire region against climate collapse. Heron Island is a natural paradise in the southwest Pacific, close to the Australian east coast. A tropical region with a reef that's teeming with life. These bizarre formations were created by animals. They are the builders of the largest structures ever to have been created by living organisms. Corals are tiny. They live in large colonies above the seabed, where they filter substances out of the water. It's only under the microscope that you can see these fragile creatures with their many tentacles. A gigantic reef surrounds Heron Island. At low tide, you can walk on it. 3 Australian scientists are in search of a special type of coral. They believe it can create clouds above the water's surface. The Acropora coral is one of the builders of the reef.
They built the Great Barrier Reef, essentially, you could say. The outer barrier reef is over 1,000 kilometres long. composed of 2,800 coral reefs. It's so huge that it can be seen by the astronauts when they circle the Earth in their spacecraft. Since millions and millions of years, they've suffered 5 mass extinctions, as other organisms have on the planet, but they've always come back. It's a marvelous ecosystem that we have to protect, but most importantly, we have to learn more about it.
The edge of the reef is a few hundred feet off Heron Island. To explore this diverse habitat, the scientists go for a dive. Though the corals dominate life down here, they also attract a multitude of other animals. More than 1,500 species of fish and other rare creatures live in this highly sensitive and complex environment, one of the most diverse ecosystems in the world.
Because we're in the southern Great Barrier Reef, the coral larvae from the northern reefs have settled here and over hundreds of, if not thousands of years, built up the coral reef system into what we see today.
Once a year, during a night of the full moon in early Australian summer, the corals spawn. It's one of nature's great spectacles, as all corals release their eggs at the same time. Soon, the entire reef is flooded with eggs. New coral colonies are created. This cycle of nature is vital for the entire habitat. Yet corals are extremely delicate creatures that can be harmed by adverse factors in the environment. By studying how these tiny animals react to a rise in water temperature, scientists have discovered an astonishing mechanism.
So what we can see here is that in our control temperature, where we have the same conditions as in the environment, the coral looks pretty happy, it looks healthy, whereas here in this tank, where we have increased the temperature up to 34 degrees, where we already have, after 1 day of treatment, a lot of mucus production, which means that there is more release of this sulfur compound into the atmosphere, which can contribute to cloud formation because it can produce its own shade pretty much against environmental pressure.
These highly sensitive animals perceive even a 1 degree increase in water temperature. If it gets too warm, they protect themselves by releasing mucus. This is of great interest to the scientific community. The warming of the oceans is a major issue for corals, and Australia's coastal waters have been warming for years. The entire reef is in danger, but there is hope, and not just for the corals.
The coral actually contains cloud-seeding substances. Under certain conditions, these cloud-seeding substances are emitted, or exuded, if you like, into the water. We've actually proved that the corals contain these substances, that they produce them in the water, and when they get into the atmosphere, these cloud-forming substances oxidize to cloud condensation nuclei. Well, clouds moderate the temperature of the sea. So really we have a protection mechanism here going on for the reefs.
Corals have developed an effective method to protect themselves against the warming of the oceans. If water temperatures rise, they secrete tiny particles of a sulfur compound. Countless particles float towards the surface and get into the atmosphere. Here they produce clouds that provide shade and cool down the corals, a mechanism so ingenious that it baffles scientists.
This is absolutely huge. It actually needs to be taken up much, much more seriously and confirmed. Because if these coral reefs actually affect climate in the way that we've suggested, in other words, that they produce these low-level clouds which can affect temperature, and we believe there's a connection between rainfall.
It's a revolutionary approach, demonstrated by tiny animals. Research into this phenomenon is still at an early stage, but its discovery might be of great benefit to mankind. It is discoveries like these that encourage scientists like Martin Wikelski to look at nature itself as a protecting factor against catastrophes by tapping into nature's sixth sense.
Wir haben jetzt zum ersten Mal die Möglichkeit, wirklich das Leben auf der Erde als gesamt vernetztes System zu verstehen. Ich glaube, wenn wir das verstehen, wenn wir auch die Menschen wieder näher an die Natur bringen, wenn wir die Möglichkeit haben, über Tiere diese Naturkatastrophen auch nur in einem geringen Bereich besser zu verstehen oder vorherzusagen, dann haben wir sehr, sehr viel gewonnen. Also die Zukunftsvision ist, dass wir sowas haben wie Voraussage über die Lebensereignisse auf dem Planeten und natürlich die zukünftigen Ereignisse, die über den sechsten Sinn der Tiere aufgenommen und an uns weitergegeben werden können.
Our planet's natural system is extremely diverse and complex, and we are an integral part of it. Throughout evolution, animals and plants have created an intelligent network. It's a secret wealth of knowledge we need to tap into. There will always be natural disasters, but through the special senses of the animal world, we may be able to prevent the worst. Animals that monitor the sky, predict volcanic eruptions, or lead fire crews to the flames. Science is still at the beginning, but there's hope that the sixth sense of the animal kingdom will help to protect the beauty of our planet for the future.